This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk about bass fishing. It's a Tuesday. It is Bass Fishing Hall of Fame induction ceremony week. 3 anglers going into the Hall of Fame on Thursday night. We're also continuing our series this week, talking with 2024 Bassmaster Classic qualifier and 23 Open EQ angler Ben Milliken. We had back-to-back open weeks. It was the first time in my 5 years that I guess fishing at the AAA level that I had back-to-back tournament weeks. And I have a new respect for the Elite Series and MLF guys who have to go back-to-back. It's we'll talk about that with Ben. Let's bring Ben in for this morning. Ben, thank you for jumping on BTL. I know it's been at least for me, it's been a hectic 2 weeks, and I'm sure for you it's been a hectic 2 weeks as well.
It has, man. I started off the trip up north too for about a week or 9 days or something. So got back last night for the first time in I think like 29, 30 days back to Texas. So feels good to be back.
Yeah, I did a 30-day rotor in July, and that first week and the last week are always tough, and then you kind of get used to the road in the middle.
Yeah, definitely. It goes by really quick once you get going on the grind. The 2 tournaments seem to go by super fast. It was just, getting around, and every time you go to that dang gas pump, it gets old real quick.
It is. Now, you traveled around a lot for your YouTube channel and for what you did for a living for a year, but is this the first time you've really traveled around this much, for tournaments, I guess?
Yeah, definitely. And generally when I shoot my YouTube content, I like to switch things up. I don't generally go anywhere for a long period of time. So, I mean, a lot of my trips were 2, 3, 4 days. So going out of town for 2 weeks, 28 days, whatever at a time is definitely a different type of grind.
Especially with young kids. And I mean, you still have to do the YouTube content. You got people already. Yeah, it's a full-time job that you don't get paid for.
100%. I mean, you do so many different full-time jobs out there. I'm lucky my wife definitely is the champion there over the last month, watching the kids and the dogs and everything else. But yeah, man, it's been a circus, and you just kind of go day by day.
What have been her thoughts about this whole year? Because obviously she's been along for the ride for the YouTube, but this is her first kind of dive into the quote unquote professional tournament scene. And I know she's traveled with you a lot with the kids. So what are her thoughts on it?
I think she enjoys it. She supports whatever I want to do with my life, of course. She kind of would have to at this point. I mean, there's growing pains, of course. I don't think that's something that a lot of these elite guys and top level tournament guys talk about, taking their family on the road, out of town, sleeping in strange places. The relationship duties parenting duties that are expected, and the mental focus that we have to have as anglers to be remotely competitive or even show up and catch fish at these crazy fisheries is hard to even fathom unless you're on the road, and you have to spend so much of your time as a fisherman out there, and it's hard to balance. When you get off the water, it's not like you flip the switch off and you go be dad and a husband. I mean, you have to go work on tackle. You have to figure out what the hell you're doing the next day, where you're going to launch, where you're going to fish, what baits you're going to throw, what tackle you need to put in and out of your boat. So, yeah, it's a never-ending grind, and we've gotten better at it though, so that's good.
It's interesting. I remember a couple years ago, Polinick published an article. I think it was on Bassmaster, a blog post about how in order to be at the top of your game, there's a level, you have to be a level of selfish to achieve. But then at the same time, that kind of comes full circle, because then you're providing for your family through it. And it's like this kind of weird dynamic of balancing, obviously with him with a young family as well too. I thought it was a very interesting article. A lot of challenges that I don't even think of as a guy who's not married and doesn't have any kids, I mean, I'm like, holy cow, we got to get off here because I got to start marinating the steaks for tonight. I take my hat off to you and all those who juggle the family and on the water responsibilities simultaneously.
Yeah, it's been a lot, but it's good. I'd much rather have that than be gone from them for a month straight.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely. Well. All right, I want to get this. I want to get this right off the hopper because you agreed to do something really cool. If you've been listening to BTL, I did a Sunday night show with Frank, and then yesterday's show was with Gene Gilliland, 2021 Bass Fishing Hall of Fame inductee. For his work on the conservation side. But every year the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame does a auction, both at the event and then an online auction to raise money. If you have any questions on where that goes, you can listen to Gene's interview yesterday. We have there's a number of grants. There's a number of scholarships. It goes to working on the display in the Wonders of Wildlife for the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Long story short, we try to get badass trips, and that's the best way to describe it because there's a lot of badass trips available, and you can bid on these trips through September 28th, I believe at 10 p.m. Eastern time. So you have been gracious enough to donate a day on the water with you sometime between this winter and next spring. It's kind of up to be determined, and you have to get there. But thank you for doing that. And I got to admit, you are one of the highest bidding trips currently with about 2 days left for bidding. So wanted to bring that up. And then have you thought about like what you're going to do with the winner of the trip?
I'm going to kind of leave it up to them, honestly. I'm assuming especially if we get a listener from you guys, if they're going to come down to Texas, they're going to want to go chase some 10 plus pound bass in the winter. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, there it is. Holy cow. It just jumped up again. The current bid is $2,050 for a day on the lake. Now you're also going to do a YouTube video about this with the winner. So you're going to get featured on your YouTube channel, but that's a great donation and a great trip. So thank you for stepping up, and you get to fish with the Bassmaster Classic qualifier. Has that sunk in yet that you are in the Grand Classic? Like, I know you're bummed out. We'll get into that about what's been going on the water recently and the chance that you have to still make the Elite Series. But dude, you've got the Bassmaster Classic coming up in less than 6 months.
Yeah, it's coming up a lot quicker. It's sunk in a little bit, but I'm still just like focused on finishing this year out strong. We'll kind of talk more about that. But I think once the last Open's done and we kind of make plans for next year, figure out what we're going to do. Hopefully that's figured out pretty easy for us. But then we'll really start focusing on March.
If you want to bid on that, I'll add it. It's just go to bassfishinghof.com. Click on the main photo there. It pulls up all of the great things. I mean, there's a Sasquatch hunt with Greg Hackney. We had Hackney on to talk about that. He believes he got a baby on camera and that you'll have a good shot at taking down a bull Sasquatch is what he called it. It includes a night vision hunt for hogs.
I might bid on that one, I think.
Oh, dude, you 100% should bid on it. It's only at like $800 right now, Ben.
All right, I might have to do that.
That would be legendary if you and the Hack Attack went on a Sasquatch hunt. But if you go to it's on the third page there, you can scroll down, fish with Ben Milliken. There it is right there. And then also, that jumped up a little. There's the BTL experience that you can also bid on, bassfishinghof.com. And that includes $250 travel voucher. So whether you're driving or flying or whatever, I'll give you a card with $250 on it, a prize pack from BTL sponsors Denali, AFCO, Sunline, and Big Bite. And then you get to co-host a day of Bass Talk Live, try to get a big name guest on right across from me. And then we're going to go try to jack some 3-pound crappie. And then I will also clean, vacuum pack, and send you home with said crappie, as long as they are under 2 pounds. Anything 2 pounds or above gets released. So there's also that. And then one more before we move on, a 1-of-1 Frank Scalish drawing that he showed on BTL. It's autographed. It says 1-of-1 on it. It's like a dock drawing. You can see it right there. And that's only $150. That's an 8.5 by 11. Great addition to anyone's man cave, and all 100%.
I'm going to bid on. Perfect.
Oh, dude, have you been through this yet?
No, I haven't been through any of it. That's awesome.
Look, there's some really there's a bunch of stuff that I want to add to the BTL studio. Like for $150 current bid, a Rojas autograph jersey and 2 signed frogs. That's some history right there. All sorts of different.
I saw another one. Maybe I could go learn how to throw a jerkbait from Randy Blockett.
That would be legendary. That would be legendary. Yeah. I think that one's at $300. All sorts of autograph stuff. Private lake bass fishing with BPT pro Mark Rose. That would be really cool. I've gotten to spend some time in the boat with him during a media day, and he's a really good teacher when it comes to things. Fishing trip with Hall of Famer Tommy Biffle. 50% chance you get cut.
I like that.
All sorts of stuff. A fishing trip on Gunnersville with Salzman. I don't know if you know what Ryan Salzman does on the TVAs, especially around this time of the year with the big swim baits below the tail races. He is. I mean, I'd put him top 5 on the TVAs when that bite is on, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Plus a fun guy. I'm on a bid on the KVD autograph banner. I think that would look really good in the studio.
That's a lot of good stuff on there, man. I need to go through that.
Yep. Fishing trip with Brandon. You're ahead of Brandon Polinick for the fishing trip with Brandon Polinick.
Let's talk some trash.
Here, let's do the trips. Let's just look at the trips. Skeet Reese, Matt Becker, Ron Nelson, Mark Rose, Jeremy Lloyd. Dude, if you have listened to BTL with Jeremy Lloyd, he's become one of my favorite pros. That dude is hilarious.
Yeah, he's a hammer too down the Ozarks.
Paquette, Polinick. Oh, there was one on here that I am definitely going to bid on. It was like 4 passes to the Hockey Hall of Fame and a behind stage tour in Toronto. And I got my passport now, so I can head in. I mean, I think it was only at like $100. So I
like that. Hey, one thing I'm getting questions on: when do we have an official date and time of when this is going to end?
Yes, the 28th, which is the day of the auction, which is the day of the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame banquet at
that's Thursday.
10 p.m. Eastern time, I believe is when it ends. So 9 p.m. Central. So you have through the 28th to bid on this. There's the night vision Sasquatch with Hackney. The trip will include a hog hunt with night vision to acquire bait. The more bait, the better chance of getting close to the assumed mythical creatures of the night. He will provide a guiding and his camp in southern Mississippi for a night that is a guaranteed once-in-a-lifetime experience. Dude, you gotta bid on that.
I will.
Milliken and Hackney would be awesome.
Don't be coming in and sniping me either, people.
Bassfishinghof.com to bid on these items, and then you can click on it and see the bid. So I definitely wanted to get that in. One more thing I wanted to give a shout out before we get into today's show. When I had Zaldane on a couple last month, I don't know how long it was. It had to have been last month because we were on the road and the days just fly by on the road. I talked about how I buy Black Rifle coffee at Walmart strictly because of their support of the bass fishing. I don't know how it got hooked up, but there was a package waiting for me when I returned home. I got 96 K-cups of Black Rifle coffee assorted, and then a badass, it's got like the AK-47 with the rooster and the black. I'm a little nervous to use it around the computer, but big shout out to Black Rifle Coffee Company and Chris and Trait for hooking me up with that. That was something cool to come home to after a sucky 2 weeks. All right, you want to get into it, Ben?
Let's do it, man.
All right, let's start out at Watts Bar. Kind of set the stage going into this swing of 2 opens. It was opens number 7 and 8. You went into it with a 5th, a 1st, a 62nd, a 64th, a 22nd, and then a 93rd at the St. Lawrence River. But this was a very pivotal swing in the year. Talk about your mentality and what your thoughts were going into Watts Bar.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have any big picture thoughts. I just kind of wanted to get down there and see how it was going and how it was fishing, and then kind of see how that carried into the Ozarks, I guess. But I figured out quick in practice. Like, I actually had a good day 1 in practice, caught probably 13, 14 pounds, got a 4 and a 3 and some high 2s. And I was like, all right, well, this is difficult, but it's not the absolute worst place. And then, I mean, the subsequent days of practice, realized extremely quickly how difficult it was going to be to put together a limit and even more than 8 or 9 pounds, because the fish weren't, not only were they not 15 inches, which is a pretty long length limit for their 18 for smallies. I would like to throw that in before we talk about some of the debacles that happen on the water. But they were extremely skinny. I mean, you could catch 15-inch fish that weighed 1.2, 1.3 pounds. So looking at the weights, and when you talk about the gap between catching 7 pounds for a limit and 9 pounds for a limit, huge difference in the caliber of fish, kind of similar to catching 3-pounders instead of 2-pounders at most places. So I guess kind of that was what I figured out in practice. But as practice went on, I found 4 or 5 creeks where I felt in areas where I felt like I could catch keepers. Had no problem catching 15, 16-inch fish. And that's what I was going to do for the tournament. The spot in the area was where I found the best quality fish was that Tom Fuller area, because it was a release fish area. There was an 80 some boat tournament there just before the tournament, or before practice, actually during practice, I think the first day of practice. And that was actually the day I caught them. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, we got the stocking program going even better when the tournament kicks off. And I caught a 4-pounder and a 3-pounder in there. And I was able to kind of differentiate on live scope what the bass looked like from the catfish, because there were schools and schools of catfish and carp and gar, mostly catfish though, that were ambushing the shad that were back there, and everywhere else a lot like the largemouth do. Of course, the catfish were super fat and healthy, but the bass not so much. But I felt good about it. I mean, I probably burned more gas in practice there than anywhere besides St. Lawrence River, driving all over the place trying to find something. But like I said, I landed on 4 or 5 groups and areas of fish where if I got even close to them later in practice, if I got halfway to them and started catching some fish, they were keepers. Left the areas, left them alone. I was like, this is where the better quality ones, even if I can only catch 15 or 16-inch fish, this is where they're at, with a chance to catch a 4-pounder and come in with 10, 11 pounds.
I was curious on how you would attack this, because Watts Bar is a very, I use the term dynamic fishery loosely, but it has you can go 30 miles like 4 different ways up that thing. And you can fish dams and you can target small. There's a bunch of different things that you can do. But based on what you've done on the first part of the year, particularly at Eufaula and your affinity for big baits, offshore ledge fishing and schooling fish, I was wondering if you would spend a lot of time offshore on those ledges trying to dial in a big fish current bite with a big worm, a swim bait, that type of thing. Did you work on that at all during practice?
Yeah, I did it, and I never could get in a rhythm to where I felt like I was throwing at bass or catching bass when I would find those groups. There was whites everywhere. You pull up, that was the weirdest place, where you pull up to a brush pile offshore and you could hardly even tell it was a brush pile. It was like dots of fish, the entire everything. And it wasn't crappie like you usually see like that. There was some crappie, but it would be carp and catfish. And I know some bass too. People caught bass in offshore brush, obviously. But I just could never get in a good rhythm, find a good area that really led me to get down that right path of finding the groups of offshore fish.
So in past tournaments, you've gone in with, hey, I'm swinging for this thing. I've got a shot to win. It seems like this was one where you kind of put your work hat on and you went out and you knew this was going to be a grinded out 10 pounds a day, survive and advance deal.
Yeah, it was like that, but I've done that several times this year. Bugs Island and Eufaula in Oklahoma were the 2 times where I'm just like, I'm going to get as many bites as I can, and we'll see if they're 2 pounds or 4 pounds or 12 inches. I don't know what they're going to be, but I need to catch and go through as many fish as possible to make it happen. And I'm going to try to put myself in areas where I think or know that there's 15-inch plus fish.
Before we get into what went down in the tournament, Anthony, with a very good question, can you explain the difference of differentiating catfish versus bass based on what you're seeing on the graph?
Yeah, so I mean, it's hard to really explain without showing a visual, but the way they were acting, I guess, was part of it. But the catfish also showed up a little more fuzzy, and they were in bigger groups generally. So if you saw like 10 or 15 or 76 blobs just blowing bait in 10 feet of water and on the bottom mostly, or even arching up into them, that was almost always catfish.
Okay.
But if you saw two real hard dots or one fish that was high in the column swimming really fast and you got that tail separation, generally that was a bass. That's about the best I can do, because as the tournament went on later in the days, the bait ball fish that I ended up targeting, I could catch them on bait balls, but generally I was catching random lost bass. I don't know what the hell they were doing, swimming 4 feet below the surface in 30 feet of water. And those were usually the bass. But later in the days, the catfish started doing that. One individual catfish swimming 3 feet below the surface in 20 to 40 feet of water between bait balls, and you throw your cricket in there and come up and get it. And I caught probably 15, 20 catfish a day doing that.
We'll talk about how the tournament went, but then I want to get into this bait ball stuff, because this was the first time that and I figured this out during the tournament. Is the reason why I weighed in a limit both days, was I figured out the bait ball thing going from, oh, there goes Ben, he's back, going from one side of a creek to the other side of a creek. And I was like, that looks very interesting. And what ended up happening was I had a drop shot and I was fishing docks and topwater. And when I went across the back of a creek, I saw a bait ball, like an actual bait ball on my forward facing sonar. And I noticed a couple dots below the bait ball. So I picked up the drop shot with a 4.5 inch pink worm, the same worm that I always use. And I pitched it through the bait ball. And as I pitched it through the bait ball, the bait kind of separated, and I realized there were bass that were in that bait ball, and they followed it down and it went donk. And I probably caught, in the last 3 hours of the first day, I probably caught 30 between 14 and 7/8 inches. And I was like, man, if those fish are in there have to be keepers, because I had 2 at the time. And I stayed in the back of one creek on day 1 and literally chased 3 bait balls around repeatedly, hundreds of times, pitching a drop shot through it. And the bass was almost, to me, seemed like stock trout, where they had them in the back of this creek, where they had a backboard where it got up to 4 or 5 foot. There was a little bit of a basin, and they would just swim through these bait balls. And when you got it right, you knew 100% you were going to get a bite. And I ended up actually catching 3 keepers, one on my very last cast doing it. They were 15 to 17 inches and they weighed 1.4 pounds. But that was the first time in a tournament I'd really not targeted individual fish, but was pulling fish out of a bait ball down to the bottom to eat a drop shot.
Yeah, man, that was very interesting. And it made it more difficult with the catfish and stuff, like I was saying. But I found the same thing. I had one creek where I had went back on day 1, and there was a school of like 100 bass in the back of it. And I kept seeing these little wolf packs of spotted bass way back in the creeks too. Usually it helped if there was a bluff that led all the way back to the grass edge and stuff like that. And I was catching a lot of keeper spots in practice, and I don't think I caught one in the tournament, but yeah, once again, 14 to 14 3/4 inch bass. Somehow they know to group up by size, it seems like.
And all those are fat too, it seemed.
Of course. Every one of those weighs 2 pounds. And then ones you catch are 1.4 and 17 inches long. Yeah, so that's what I did day 1 and day 2. It was really painful. I didn't realize how big of a deal it would be, but I did jump off 2 keepers, like 16-inch fish day 1, right by the boat. Just a mental lapse, I guess, twitching my little minnow, not to pull on them harder. But they were super jumping fish. They all were out of their minds when they'd eat it, of course. And I guess that kind of comes with the territory. So, but I mean, looking back now with where I'm at in points, 31 points back or something from my Elite Series berth, and seeing what 4 pounds would have done, or even 3 pounds would have done at Watts for me on that first day, probably would have moved me up 40 to 50 points. That's really, really painful, but it's kind of what you take with it in an event like that, I guess. It doesn't take any more skill to catch a 15-inch fish than a 14.5 inch or 14 3/4 inch fish. It's kind of where the luck of fishing comes into play. But, Tyler Williams wasn't catching 15-inch fish. So if I would have found something better, then I wouldn't have had to rely on that.
I struggle between well, it was luck on whether you had 17 inches or whether they were fat or skinny, but there was a bite for those legit 2.5 to 4 pounders out there somewhere. And I mean, I never saw it. Did you see any of those 18-inch smallmouth in practice? And was that something that you thought might work into your game plan?
No, not at all. But I will tell you, if we want to go into day two.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you had a big comeback on day two.
Yeah, somewhat. I kind of got lucky. So I'd been to a point way down by the dam, a big, long, tapering point, and I'd seen some fish on it, and they weren't acting like catfish or carp or drum even, but they wouldn't bite. So I went back day two after I had gone through my other spots and caught precisely 0 keepers by like 9:30, 10 in the morning. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go to the big fish spot because who knows what could happen. And I pull up and I catch a short largemouth. And then I hook one and I'm fighting it. And I'm like, okay, it's a good one. Get it up, 17-inch smallmouth, which I also caught a 17-inch smallmouth on day one. So that was helpful.
Got to be 18, so not a keeper. You throw back a 2.25 pounder.
Correct. But then I'm fishing around 5 minutes later and I hook something really big, jumps way out, big smallmouth. I get it in. It was like 21, 22 inches long, 4.5 pounder. And I could see them. There was a bunch of them down there, a bunch of big ones. So I was like, damn, I could freaking crack them, catch 18, 19 pounds here. This is going to be amazing. And I never got another one to bite there. The bite window just shut immediately or something happened. I went back to them again later and they didn't bite either. So I was happy with that. Went to another grass spot, drug a worm through the grass, spinnerbait. I was catching them on a spinnerbait over the grass too, which I hate throwing, but they were eating it better than a chatterbait and a swim jig for me. So I was catching some on that, but I think I caught a keeper on that. And then went end of the day, 2:30, I roll into a creek and I caught like 5 keepers on bait balls. And that was my giant 10 and almost 11 pound limit right there.
I mean, you look at the ones you jump off on day one that would have put you right up in the cup. But I mean, if you don't land that one big smallmouth, you're also 90 points back now because that was a 50 point fish right there for you, which at this point in the year, you're counting fish. Yeah, that was an interesting tournament. I was shocked at the end of it. Unless I'm really pissed off about a tournament, I like to bounce around with all my buddies out there on how they caught them and things like that. And I got on a really cool punching bite in the back of a creek around one of the Thief Neck Island. That's one of the coolest islands that were ever. There's some cuts around there that had some grass in the back. And in practice, I rolled through, had a horny toad on with no hook, and had 5 keepers blow up on it in like 20 minutes. And I was like, holy cow, this is the best thing I found. I go back in there on day one, never have a single bite. And there's a couple mats, and I'm like, well, these fish they're not going to leave here. This is the back of a creek. They've got to be somewhere in here. And was weird, that kind of cheesy hydrilla milfoil mix. So I put on a 3/4 ounce punch weight and I caught like 10, like that, punching like braid 7/6, like donk but I only had 1 keeper out of it. I missed a couple. I was not expecting it. And then I caught the rest out of bait balls. I go back day 2. I make like 2 casts with a top water. And I said, screw this. I said, I wonder if they're under those mats first thing. And I caught 4 keepers in the first half hour punching. And then, yeah, it was the wildest thing. You would think that, I mean, it was low light. It was overcast that morning. And it was just dong as I went through. Caught like 7 or 8 shorts and 4 keepers. It was the complete opposite of how I thought you should catch them punching, because I would go back in the afternoon every day and never get a bite. When it was sunny, the sun was high, it was calm. That's when you should catch them punching. But they were under those dang mats early and cloudy. And then I went and did the bait ball thing in the afternoon.
Yeah, what a random lake. It was really confusing for me, I think, because that lake might have the best habitat of anywhere I've ever been before, with beautiful hydrilla, milfoil patches. You got mats, you got current, ledges, brush piles, docks, bluffs, natural rock, islands that have beautiful isolated hydrilla patches behind them on the main river, just out of the current. Bait everywhere, whites and yellow bass they could eat too. Both species of shad, just everything you could ask for. And I could never really put my finger on anything besides I just need to try to go fishing and catch as many as possible. So I don't understand that place very well.
Neither do I.
Obviously, Tyler Williams and JT and Trey and John Garrett aren't thinking it's a random, terrible fishery, but it's just not something that I ever figured out really.
I talked to guys who caught him doing all sorts of stuff, flipping lay downs, chatter baiting the backs of pockets, main lake, ledges, bait balls, top water, like everything kind of played there. It was a real grinder. I didn't hate it. Beautiful. Everyone was so nice there. Did you notice that? Like every single person in that neck of the woods would come out on the dock and talk to you, and they were super nice people in general. I thought one of the most accommodating fisheries that we've attended this year.
Definitely very nice. Definitely, maybe not a popular opinion to have with the folks at Bass, but very clearly a venue that was chosen based on money and about nothing else. It's not a good fishery, and the ramp had no business holding a tournament. I just thought it was the city didn't have much in it. We're in Kingston. And I have bad feelings about that because we had to drive in the pitch black over to the ramp because you couldn't launch at the ramp. There was like 5 ramps they sent us to, and I crushed a channel buoy, and 2 other guys destroyed their boats, giant holes in the front of their boat, crushing the same marker buoy out in the dark.
So did you have to fish with that hole?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the video that you just posted.
Yep. So did the other people. I mean, I guess it's my fault, but it's unmarked channel buoys. I don't know. I feel like we should probably have the tournament go out of a ramp that can support launching boats. But
I hear you. I got lucky. I stayed at a private residence. It was absolutely, and I had to drive over. But one of the things I've always done, because I did it one time, Ben, I did not go to where the ramp takeoff was during practice, and then I had to do it. I did it at Thousand Islands when we took out of Clayton, which was a nightmare. I had to drive 5 miles around those islands strictly on, because it was pitch black because we took off at like 5 a.m. Strictly on GPS, and I was like, I'm never doing that again. So now I always have a trail from where I'm launching to where we launch for the tournament, and then I can just follow that.
I like it.
Then we went, so I mean, you're obviously not thrilled. You had to come back, and then we go to Lake of the Ozarks right after, which was last week's tournament. And I feel like there were some similarities, at least in my opinion, with just how the fish were scattered, but a totally different fishery in a totally different part of the country. 10 hours away, you got to put Watts Bar behind you and go back and do it again.
Yeah, much healthier fishery, but a lot of similarities with the fish being spread out. Catch them in 40 feet, catch them in less than a foot, all different types of baits. I listened to your episode with Charlie Hartley, was really good, kind of the precursor to it, saying that you could, 2 or 3 or 4 things could really do it for you. But when in reality, I think looking at it now and seeing how it went, I think there was a lot of ways you could catch them, which is pretty indicative of a September tournament. But really a place, it was the only place on the schedule that I had been to before. I just never had fished there besides the winter and the spring. But I love that place. The fish were extremely healthy. Caught some good fish in practice the first few days. Tried to do the dock thing. The fish where I really wanted to fish the isolated docks, kind of the backs of pockets where the big ones like to get set up that time of year, weren't quite there yet. Probably by now or in a week or so, the big ones will really start getting patterned back there. I'm sure people caught them great back there. I just never did. Couple of the practice days, first few, I could catch 15 to 20 keepers, skipping good docks, stuff like that, but nothing over 3 pounds. It was really tough to get a 3-pound bite, I felt like. And I think looking at the weights, you're seeing that too. There was a lot of guys that weighed 9 to 12, 13 pounds. And so that a 3-pound bite was everything. And I got on some good brush piles down there in the glaze area. And then unfortunately, looking back on it now, I went up the river one day, I think the second day in practice, and I felt like something was there that I was missing. And for whatever reason, I went back the afternoon of the 4th day in practice, just try to get a quality bite going. Fished around a whole cove that looked really good, big release area that I know about. Nothing. And I get to the last dock, and it's the one out towards the main river, and the wind's blasting into it. And so I throw a glide down the side of it. It was like one of the first times I've thrown it. And I didn't really want to throw a glide up there because the water was like 8 to 12 inches of visibility. It was not clean. So I throw a bone glide down the side of it and get absolutely destroyed. Set the hook on it, comes up, jumps. It was like a 4.5 pounder. I was like, all right, that's cool. So I throw back down the side of the dock because that one was way out towards the front of the dock. Throw it down, and right on the end of my cast, a different fish crushes it and misses it. I was like, all right. So I throw down again, and I'm reeling it in quick, and like 4 3 to 5 pounders are right on the back of it. So, okay. So I go around the point out to the main lake, and there's wind blasting to that dock, and I throw down the side of that. 5 pounder comes up, crushes it. Like, okay. And so I start running that, and within like a 5-mile stretch of the river, every single dock that had wind blowing on the side of it, within, I don't know, 2 hours that I fished up there, had a 3+ pounder on it, and probably 25 3 to 6 pound bites I had in a couple hours there. Maybe not even that, maybe 90 minutes.
Wow.
And so obviously I was very excited about that. Especially looking at the tournament, that was the first day of practice that wasn't sunny, almost slick calm. That was the first day we had some weather. We had some storms blow through that morning. It was low light conditions. And then the conditions for the tournament 2 days later and 3 days later were looking exactly the same. Low light conditions, more wind than we had had. So I was pumped. So I kind of put together the game plan of, and then I tried to run that too, lower down the river, down by the launch area. Couldn't get touched on it. I was like, perfect. No one else is going to really dial this in, which you actually saw Daisuke Kita, the guy he got second, right? Maybe?
Yeah, second or third, I think.
He was up there with me, and he was throwing a clash on the same stuff. So apparently he figured it out, but didn't see anyone else doing it. So I went down, tried it, had some fish down in the glaze on brush and stuff, and I decided I was going to start on those to try to get some keepers under my belt, because it always is a little bit better feeling when you're throwing that big bait around to have some in the box. And then that was my game plan, to head up the river after that.
All right, we'll get into how the tournament went down, because it was very consistent for you. We're going to take our first break of the show, talking with Ben Milliken about the back-to-back Open EQs that just took place on Watts Bar and Lake of the Ozarks. It is Tuesday, September 26, 2023. We will be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Shoreline Boat and RV, dock rash, storm damage, collision repair, that deep scratch or gouge from trying to access that secret creek. Shoreline Boat and RV can get your prized possession back in mint condition and looking good on the water, fast. All repairs are done in-house, so they're able to get your boat or RV back to brand new, quickly. All Shoreline's work comes with a rock-solid warranty. Find out more at shorelineboatandrv.com. Kansas City, Austin, and Tulsa.
I'm the kind of guy that never leaves the house without a pocket knife, and Gamakatsu's come out with the EDC series of knives. EDC stands for everyday carry, so whether you're on the water or off, you can always have it with you. The best thing about it to me is that assisted open feature. With this D2 blade, you've got it right here at your fingertips, so if you can't find your scissors, you need to cut a knot, you need to cut your braid, you've always got it. Make sure you check it out. Never leave home without your Gamakatsu EDC knife.
Born in Japan, using technology, innovation, and precision, Sunline produces the widest selection of fishing lines at the most technologically advanced line factory in the world. Manufactured at the strictest tolerances to produce victories at the highest levels of tournament bass fishing. From household names like Christie, Swindle, and Cruz, to young guns like Cook, Logan, New, and Welcher, they all trust Sunline to take them to the top of the leaderboard. Choose the line that will give you the strength to guarantee your confidence. Sunline.
All right, welcome back to BTL. I just thought about it when I saw that Shoreline Boat and RV commercial there. If you need I don't know, do you have a fiberglass place lined up yet?
I was trying to sneak back into that tight place, and I hit a buoy.
Yeah, but I mean, if you need a place, I might be able to hook you up with Shoreline Austin.
I got a place. Don't worry.
Okay. I'll just make it sure.
I
I'll hook you up there with the BTL sponsor. They do a great job. I've been down to that Austin facility before, but when you jack stuff up, I know it's never fun to try to get that figured out.
No, and we all do. So that's a great sponsor to have on there.
Definitely it is. So we kind of went through practice. It sounds like you had a pretty rock solid game plan. You had some water that was to yourself in an area of the lake that not many other guys were targeting the same. You had brush pile fish, you had glide bait fish, and you were ready to go out and hammer them on day one of the Lake of the Ozarks Open.
Yeah, I was pumped. Started off day one going to that brush pile stuff, and the last day of practice I went and checked it. I had one stretch where I shook off 5 keepers, or what I felt like was probably 5 keepers, and I go there and caught nothing going through it. I don't know if it was the lightning and stuff that went through the night before, and then I went to another area that was kind of further towards the mouth of the glaze, and I caught one small keeper. And about 9:30, I was like, all right, I can't wait anymore. I got to run to this big fish. Because I had only been up there and fished that in the afternoon. I didn't know if it was only an afternoon thing. I didn't know if it was an all day thing and those fish were out of their minds and ready to eat at sunrise, whatever. So I ran up there a little early, 9 o'clock or so. I made the run, 40 miles up there, I think it was, and got there, and it was pretty much dead sea up there. Nothing was happening quite yet. Threw the glide around all the juice docks, more isolated ones, closer to the mouths of the pockets, closer to the main river channel, the ones with the big fish like to set up on all year long. Nothing. So about noon, I started flipping around a little bit, flipped up 2 or 3 small keepers. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to keep giving the glide a chance, because I mean, it was something where you could feel it both days. You could feel that bite window open, as you can a lot of times with that big bait. And it's extremely rare to have a big bait bite where it goes down the entire day, or even for more than a couple hours during a day. And a lot of times it's easy to pin that down to, moonrise, moonset, sunrise, sunset, a change in weather conditions. But I couldn't pin it down on this one. But about 1:30, 2 o'clock, I think about 2 o'clock, I started catching them again. So I caught a couple small keepers on it. And then I caught like a 3-pound spot on it.
Oh, wow.
Which was awesome. And I kind of figured out, I had been chopping it pretty quick, working that bait really fast side to side in practice when I got on that bite, because for whatever reason, they were out of their damn minds for the time I was there, of course, in practice. But they wanted it really slow, like chop, 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 and for whatever reason that's what they wanted. And these were fish that were sitting in between those plastic dock floats. They weren't I mean, on poles. They weren't on the slip crossbars, anything like that. You couldn't scope them, couldn't see them at all. I mean, you could see them when you pulled them out away from it they were chasing it. But it was pull up to a dock, make very precise casts as close as possible, because I was fishing really stained water. They had to see it. You had to put it on them. And they were just hiding between those dock floats, eating bait. So I caught the couple 2-pounders, caught that 3-pound spot. And then I pull up to a random dock I hadn't fished yet, caught a 4.5-pounder, put it in the box. I was like, boom, it's the slow chop. That's what they want, because I had caught 4 keepers in 15 minutes. And as what happens with big bait fishing so much, that window slammed shut on me, and that was it. 2 more hours, nothing. That was it. So blasted back, spent another half hour on that stretch of good brush piles that I started on, didn't get anything off those, and went and weighed in my 3 2-pounders, 3-pounder, and a 4.25, 4.5, whatever that big one was, for my it was over 13, but I had a dead fish. So
I got you. Weighed in 12, 13 on the first one. Quick question about that. I'm not a glide bait expert. I mean, I've got them. I feel comfortable throwing them in certain situations, but I'm also scared to refish docks that I've pulled fish out from. Like in my experience, what I've always done, and it hasn't always worked, seldomly, but like if I can pull one, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to do it, but I want it to be the first shot that they see it. You said you went back and refished docks that you'd pulled fish from. Do you notice, is it sometimes harder to catch him after you've pulled a fish and he's followed it the day before or 2 days or 3 days before, and then you go back to that same dock? Do you think that fish is less likely to commit to that bait, or is that kind of an old wives' tale?
Really, every fish is different. I know that's
Okay.
not helpful at all, but one thing I'll do is if I pull a fish like earlier in a day or the day before, I'll go back and hit it at a different angle. So if I'm casting if I'm out from the dock and I'm casting to the back corner and working it down the side, I'll veer into that dock cable and I'll throw it out to the main lake and I'll work it down that way, or I'll throw it in, like skip it up under a float best I can and just slow chop it right where that fish bit or whatever.
Okay, so that's key. So you're giving it a different look, so it's not the exact same thing where that fish is like. Do you think when you give the exact same thing multiple times, they are less likely to come up and eat it when it's game day?
Yeah, they get smart really quick. These fish get conditioned so fast. I think faster than ever now with the fishing pressure and forward-facing sonar. Even with something where you're not using it, they just get conditioned way quicker.
And then, do you think the same fish live on the same docks? Like, do you think those fish that you didn't pull in the tournament but did in the practice were still there? Or I know this is a case by case, but I'm trying to figure out in my mind, and I know a lot of the listeners probably are too, when they want to go back for their tournament. Like, do you think like that school of 4-pounders lived on that dock and they're there and they're going to be there? It's just you getting them, or do you think they might be on the channel behind you or 3 docks down or in the cove behind it, or is that their freaking home?
I think it depends on where you're at in the country. I do know with those Ozark lakes, especially that one and some of the cleaner water ones like Table Rock and Bull Shoals, I know that you can get a change in conditions and those fish can go from 40 feet to the damn bank in 5 minutes and pull up and start feeding. So just my knowledge of that, I feel like that those fish are constantly moving. But I also feel like the same types of docks I was fishing, the first dock leading into a creek, the docks that are by the channel swings, on the mouth of a cut on a bluff, those are places a fish will live all year long. Does not matter what time of the year. You don't need to listen to the banter about how the shad migration, you need to go to the back of the creeks and all that. Those fish can sit there, especially the lake like Lake of the Ozarks. It's loaded with bait. And pretty much sitting between them dock floats and have their mouth open and wait for those shad to swim in their mouth year round if they want to. So, I mean, I guess they can, I feel like they're constantly moving. I think if the same fish that I caught were still on those docks, they would have at least followed or bumped it. And they didn't. So I'm at a loss. I don't know where they went. They, some of them were still there, I'm sure, but I caught fish on different docks every single day.
You've mentioned a couple of things that I find very interesting. You ended up finishing, we'll get into day 2, 45th in this event. I finished 60th. We had like a pound difference, but I had 10.5 pounds on day 1, and I forced the back sides of the docks exclusively with a jig all day, 100%, just rammed it down their throats, caught a dozen of them, and only had 10 pounds. So there's a couple things that really stick out that you mentioned that I figured out on day 2 when I had 13.5 pounds. One, I had a 4.5 pounder on a windy dock going off of the main lake, the first dock going into a cove. It was by far my biggest fish. I realized that. I then caught a 3-pounder running brand new docks, exact same scenario that you described where those fish were sitting. 2, I realized you can't scope those fish that are immediately below the floats. And I had this in practice too, where you'd pitch up and you'd pitch to the front of a dock with a jig or brush hog or whatever you were throwing. And you'd be like, oh, there's one. And then you'd look down and you'd see it on the scope swimming with it. And you're like, dang, that looks like a pretty good fish, and shake it off. And you're trying to figure out where it came from. They were so tight to those floats that I realized that on the second day, and I had 3 over 3 on the second day, and I had a 3.5 pounder that I pitched up to the front of a float that I looked completely barren on scope. It went down 4 foot. It just got heavy, and I slacklined a 3.5 into the boat. So it's interesting, completely different part of the lake, completely different practice, but the fish were actually kind of acting the same 100%. And positioned the same.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's something probably has a lot to do with those fish seeing so much forward-facing sonar the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, those are the type of fish that aren't getting targeted specifically and pressured specifically that are in between there.
All right, day 2, you go out. I mean, this is kind of a make or break day for you. Ben. Like, I mean, you come in with 2 or 3 fish on day 2, it's done. You come in with a 20-pound bag, you're right back in it.
Yep, definitely. That's kind of my thoughts too. I was like, well, I'm going to have to go catch 20 pounds. I need 5 of those 4-pounders. I did the same thing. So I had a long day 1, fished till 6 o'clock almost. I was one of the last boats out. Day 2 had a co-angler with me, and I had a early boat, so I had a shorter day. 2:30 had to be in, or 3, I think it was. So I started on some of the keeper stuff and the brush piles. I was able to catch 2 small keepers, but rolled out of there. And that was, just from knowing as much as I wanted to be up the river, it was dead to start the day. And I really saw the same thing watching live with Daisuke being up there. He didn't have anything in the well until late in the day. He caught 2 back-to-back 5-pounders up there. But yeah, it was dead up there until the sun got on it or whatever, it just got brighter. So I went up there about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and same exact thing. Wheels start turning my head, not catching anything. Decided to go flip for a while. Of course, the first dock I pulled up to, I guess when I get there, I catch a 14-inch non-keeper on a glide. And I was like, okay, it's on fire today. Mm-hmm. Low light, wind's blowing harder. This is going to be good. Fish did that for another hour, nothing. So I go flip. Didn't catch anything flipping this time. And it was probably about noon. And finally, I started getting some feedback from the fish. Caught a 15-inch keeper, caught a 2.5-pound keeper, caught another 2-pounder. And then about 1 o'clock, I pull up and catch another 4.5-pounder on the back of the dock. Same exact thing as the first day. And the same exact thing happened. Window slammed shut, done, nothing for another 45 minutes, hour. And I was like, I got to try to go back to those brush piles, because I broke a good one off on a drop shot in the morning on a brush pile, and I lost another good one that I never got a hook in. So I went and ran that stuff, caught more short ones the last half hour of the day, and then boom, I go in with 12 pounds again.
You ended up finishing in 45th?
Something like that.
Which
check by 9 ounces.
Which in any normal Bassmaster Open with 190 would be a fantastic finish and great for points. It kept you in it, but the top 10 guys are absolutely out of their gourd. It's requiring a 37th place average right now to make the top 10. I want to get into the numbers, but one thing that I found interesting on Lake of the Ozarks on day 2, second half of the day, I had 4. I'm in the back of a creek, kind of reminded me of the same type of creek I was in at Watts Bar. I scanned out into the middle of the creek, bait ball, exactly the same as on a TV, the Tennessee River fishery, marks underneath it. I dig around. I hadn't had a spinning rod out all week. I pull it out and I catch 20 or 30 shorts under the exact same bait balls in the exact same section of the lake, in the exact same creek, set up identical, 10 hours apart on fisheries. And that was really surprising to me that those fish would act identical on Watts Bar that they did on Lake of the Ozarks in the back. Took the bait the same, caught them the same. They were the same size, everything. I ended up catching 1 16-incher out of it that filled out my limit. Yeah, a lot of similarities between those two lakes, really, with how different that they looked once you got on them. Yeah. All right, 1,232 points. You're in 17th place. It is going to go to 10, basically 10 points probably, because Kenta Kimura, 1355, is in 5th. They take the top 9. There's one event left in 2 weeks on the Harris Chain in Florida. Jamie Bruce is in 10th with 1263. This is still very doable, Ben. It is doable. I mean, look at what Tyler Williams has done and did, just winning one event, put him right back in it. It's crazy when you watch, they have on Bass Track now, they have the updated to-date AOY rankings, and to see what just one good day can do is crazy. But yeah, obviously I'm going to have a top 5 probably, unless a top 10 to 15 and a lot of things happen right with people around me. But definitely going to go out and try to win it. It's big Florida strain fish that I know eats the type of stuff that I like to throw, and probably act the same way that a lot of these fish around here like to act. And it's probably similar to the way a lot of fish in Toledo Bend like to act. So I'm excited for it. What is your experience on the Harris Chain, and have you ever been there in October?
I never made a cast in Florida in my life, so
You've never fished Florida in your life?
Nope.
No, really?
I think I fished the Bahamas a few times.
You think that's good or bad? I mean, dude, you're going down there with zero preconceived notions then.
Yeah, I'm going to fish, I'm fishing offshore stuff with a big bait. That's all I'm going to do.
That'll be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'll probably weigh in 4 pounds a day, but what do you do?
Or are you a believer that you manifest your own destiny on this, or like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, and you don't stress out with it?
No, I don't believe that at all. I think I've tried to manifest my destiny every tournament this year, and these guys are freaking hammers, and the fish don't do what they're supposed to most of the time. So, yeah, go out and try to freaking win it. That's all you can do. I can see them on the live scope, and we'll see if they'll bite.
All right, I want to get your take on this before it's over. Because if you make it, you're going to say, oh, it's the greatest thing ever. If you don't make it, you're going to have a different attitude on it. So I want to get your take on this after 8, while it's still, I feel, fairly neutral, because you still have everything to gain here. When you got into this thing, you started out with a 5th and a 1st, but before you made a cast, you had to have mentally anticipated what fishing the opens, the 9 EQs would be like, where 90% of the way through the season, 86% of the way through the season now. Is it anything like you'd envisioned? Is it easier? Is it tougher? What's the same? What's different?
It's trying to think. It's probably how I envisioned it. I think 5 days of practice is a lot, and adding at least a day of travel each direction, that makes for such a that's a 9-day trip each tournament. That's a lot. And so that grind has been extremely difficult, I think, as it has been on everybody, unless you're the type of guy that's going to go and practice for 2 or 3 days and spend 7 hours in the water those days, which I don't think there's hardly anybody doing that. So yeah, that part, I guess, has probably been a little more difficult than possible. The competition, I'd say, is more top heavy than I thought it would be. I think that's a fair way to think of it. I can't believe how good John Garrett, JT Tompkins, Trey McKinney, especially, I can't believe how good the fishermen those 3 are. I know Kenta Kamura is a phenomenal fisherman. I didn't know Tyler Williams at all, but he's done incredible things at the end of the season. But I didn't realize, I think those 3 guys will be at the top of the leaderboard in most of the Elite Series tournaments next year.
Listen to this. This is JT Tompkins' finishes this year. And going into it, mind you, I thought a top 30 average would win the Angler of the Year, and I thought a top 55 to 60 average would make the top 10 with 175 guys that started. Remember, this is a 230 boat, 190 to 230 boats. This isn't a 100 boat deal. This would be phenomenal if it was 100 boat. This is 200 boat average, people. 48th, 24th, 32nd, 8th, 11th, 14th, 7th, 2nd, and 7th.
That's not, I've been witnessing it.
It's insane. And it's like, the same guys over.
It's like KVD level dominance in these tournaments.
And he was born in 2002.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like he's got decades of experience on this thing.
No.
How much of that do you think is skill? And how much of that do you think is momentum? And how much of that do you think is preparation? Because I have my opinions on it. Yes. I think he does an insane amount of prep.
Yeah, JT's an insane amount of time on the water, prep. I don't know what he gets or anybody else gets for information. Obviously, it's illegal until practice starts. So, I mean, everyone.
He does his homework, Ben.
No, I'm just saying it's the same for everyone. But I've heard chatter. Oh, Trey McKinney, he's got so much money. Of course he's going to do well. JT's dad buys all these waypoints. It's like, okay, you're going to buy waypoints. That's going to make you win tournaments. That's not how it works. Are they buying waypoints and getting all this money to go do what they want every single tournament? Is that what makes you be successful every single tournament? No. So yeah, freaks, man. And it's not just forward facing sonar. Everyone has it.
Yeah.
A lot of like 50 to 75 of these guys are extremely good with it. So
I would have to say, I think Tyler Williams is like in his early 20s, JT's 21, Trey McKinney's 18, John Garrett, no surprise there. I mean, that guy was like from his college days, was born to be a professional fisherman. He's grinded it out. Same with Logan Parks. We've seen what he's done with national championships and winning the US Open. I don't know a lot about Robert G. Kyle Patrick puts his time in. He's kind of there's like a whole group of guys that are in the top 10 that kind of run together. They kind of practice together. I think they are just riding that avalanche of momentum all the way through the second half of this season. And then very interesting is Jamie Bruce, who I thought when he got to the back end, you're talking about a dude who's a Canadian angler. I mean, I made a joke to my buddy. I said, there's like 7 docks in Canada, and he goes and almost wins Lake of the Ozarks. Like, it's very impressive what Jamie Bruce has been doing in the Opens this year. Also has a really good podcast and show as well, and he's in 10th. He's a 10th place angler right now. But you're right there in 17th.
He said he'd never caught a bass. He'd never caught a largemouth in the United States before this year. Jamie said that, I think. So I
didn't even know that.
Think about that. It's insane. He's having an incredible year.
It is. A couple other anglers to keep. Joey Nania, who's missed out on like 1 point before. He's in the same position. He's in 14th. Sam George, he's missed it by like 1 point before. He's in 12th. He's another young angler. Then you've got Bobby Lane going to Florida in 15th. You've got a really, really good race, and you're right in the thick of it. I would say, in all honesty, man, I would say you're one of the last 3 guys with a legitimate shot to make it. I'd say it's between because you have 12:32 and Brett Cannon's right below you with 12:21. That's 11 points. It's probably not going to be a full field in Florida. So that 11 points is really like 22 points with a full field. Now I'd go down to Adam Rasmussen in 19th at 2:21. Probably the last like real legitimate shot, unless crazy stuff happens. But
the separation with points isn't too great, really. The 6th and 7th place guys, those are guys that are catchable for me, I feel like. So, and it's cool. The way we've been talking about how the schedule's set up all season long. It's cool that we got this major wild card that's always at the start of the Elite Series schedule or the start of the Open schedule, which is Florida, is at the very end. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how it shakes out.
Gregory, there is that question there. We're obviously going to do a wrap up after the entire year. I don't even want to approach that question with Ben about whether you're going to do it again next year until the year's over and you have time to digest it, because you're either going to be on the Elite Series or you're going to be getting ready for the Bassmaster Classic. So I think we save that question till the last kind of wrap up show. That sound fair?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I don't know the answer to it yet either, so we'll see how it goes.
All right. I had one more question, technique-wise. On those roaming fish, the bait ball fish that there's a lot of going on across the country right now, you're more of a minnow bait guy than a D-shot guy on them?
Yeah, definitely.
Really? Are you willing and able to kind of dive into that? Because I cannot catch them on that Demiki style bait, and I just shoot a drop shot right through it, and I'm like, dude, I don't understand how these guys are Ned Mickeying this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a 2-prong approach for me. One of them, one style of bait I throw is like a minnow style bait. It's what I was throwing mostly at Watts on like a 16th or an 1/8 ounce jig head. It's super, super light, so I can really hop that bait in the slack, and that bait's going to stay there, and it's going to work above the bait ball. It's going to work on fish that you can get. Basically, you got to be able to get it in front of them. If they're blasting around really quick, you got to really lead them, or you're not going to get it in front of them with that light of a jig head. But it's extremely effective because it's so light, it's so lively in the water that you can catch them that way. But on the fish that are underneath the bait balls, deeper water, moving faster, I go with a big one, like a 3/4 ounce jig head.
Oh, wow.
So it's like right through them, and they're just going to either not see it or they're going to go dong and just crush it underneath them. but that style is not very effective once it passes through or goes by them the first time. You're not going to hop that bait and catch very many fish because it doesn't look natural falling that fast.
Okay. Yeah, I need to try that heavier because I like to try, and I like to even pull fish from the upper part of the water column and get them to follow it. And I feel with that drop shot, they'll follow it down, and then you can actually hop it and get a lot of those fish to commit. But it is not very effective on the bait balls because you basically you can't really keep it in front of their face. They either follow it down or they don't. There is no coaxing or anything like that when it comes to the drop shot.
Right.
But I know just based on watching Wheeler and some of the Demiki guys, there is a definite art to the, what do you want to call that? Is it a shake, a wiggle? I don't know how you do that rod tip deal, but I haven't figured that out yet. That's a mystery to me, and I've spent a lot of time trying to do it, but there's definitely a skill in how you shake that rod to get them to commit to it. Is there not?
Oh yeah. There's some specific baits and ways that you throw the bait too that make it do special things in the water. It's a Japanese technique. Hover strolling, mid strolling. Yeah. I think hover strolling is more of like a vertical presentation, but like mid strolling, that's pretty much what it is.
It's so frustrating because I know that is the most effective way to catch them. And I guess this is where it comes down to me putting my boat on the water when there's not money on the line, finding those fish and spending as long as it takes to work through what works, what doesn't work, instead of trying to do it in a Bassmaster Open tournament or a limited amount of practice. That's kind of on me that I haven't figured that out.
Yeah, it's practice big time. It's a little bit different at every fishery what makes them go.
Is that just based on how the bait is acting, how it's positioned, what type, or what do you think makes it different?
The bait and presentation of what they're going to commit to is always a little bit different. I don't know if it's the type of bait they're chasing. I don't think it is because you're chasing threadfin eaters most of the time. Those threadfin are all about the same, 1.5 to 3 inch size. So there's not a lot of variance there, but yep, just every fishery is a little bit different of the nuance of how they want it rigged and presented to them.
All right, we've actually increased the bid. You're up to $2,550 for a day. For a day to fish with Ben Milliken. Once again, that goes through the 28th, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Bassfishinghof.com. Click on the auction bid. Ben, thanks for A, jumping on BTL and going through this after a long, grueling road trip, and B, donating that trip to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. Anything else you want to get in here before I let you go?
I don't think so, man. I won't talk to you about your plans for the next one. I'll let you say that, I guess. But yeah, hopefully we can get it done in Florida. It's going to be an interesting chase to the end here.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate it. And thank you very much, dude.
All right. Thanks, Matt. We'll talk soon.
All right. See ya. All right. That was Ben Milliken. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, wrap up what's going on the rest of the week, what's going on next week. We got some cool on location stuff from a different state up north. It's BTL on a Tuesday. We'll be back right after this.
Everything you need, one legendary brand. Top 1 Strike King.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But Don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
The great thing about the new Sensation soft plastics from Big Bite Baits, heavily scented, super soft, buoyant, comes in 7 great new shapes. I've got a couple of them of my signature series, the cliffhanger worm and the ram-tailed craw. Great for a flipping jig, football jig, swim jig, all that. Several other great shapes. Really excited about it. We've worked over the last year, catches fish all over the country, and I think it's going to catch fish for people everywhere you try it.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronic setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com. All right, welcome back to BTL. Big shout out to Ben Milliken. He's done great all year. Jumping on and being pretty candid about how things have gone down in the opens. Tomorrow, we're going to do day 4 on a day 3 with Frank Scalish. That is because I am headed to the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame banquet and induction ceremony. 3 individuals going in: Glenn Andrews, Bruce Holt, and Mike Iaconelli, who supposedly is bringing about 60 people with him for his Hall of Fame induction ceremony. So no show on Thursday. So we're going to do day 4 on day 3. And then next week, a show on Monday. We have Gretchen from St. Jude Children's Hospital, who's going to come on and talk about the 25th annual Dick Hiley St. Jude Bass Classic. I got involved with this thanks to Adam Bartuzek from the Crappie Chronicles up in Minnesota last year. And it is, I mean, any charity type tournament is a worthy cause, but it is by far the best, or how do I say this grammatically correct? The most better well run, the best run tournament that I've ever been a part of. Roughly 100 boats up there for the Dick Hiley St. Jude. And they raised over $1 million just this year, over $1 million for one tournament. BTL listeners, supporters, and Crappie Chronicles kind of combined for roughly $10,000 through t-shirts and donations. And we did a deal up in Minnesota earlier this year with Crappie Chronicles and BTL listeners. So big shout out to you guys. You have a part in that. So I am headed up to St. Jude, but that is also roughly the location of where Omni is. So I got a call from Trevor, who's been on the show many times this year from Omnia. So I'm going to go spend Tuesday at Omnia, tour that facility, that warehouse where it is. And we're going to do a BTL live 8:30 a.m. Same time except we'll be on location from Omnia, which is going to be exciting. I don't know what else they have planned for that day. And then the St. Judas that week, we'll be doing live shows every evening from Wabasha, Minnesota. And then that wraps it up. Couple things that I wanted to close with. Obviously, don't forget the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame auction, the Frank Scalish, the Milliken trip, the BTL experience trip. If you guys have any questions on that, DM me at Matt Pangrak on Instagram or matt@basszone.com on email. What else was there? There was one other thing. Oh, if you go back on the YouTube archives, you also have a chance to win a Denali Novice reel. Johnny Schultz from Fish the Moment was on. He is working on optimizing his deep dive app. He needed to have hardcore anglers provide some feedback. So one of the things that he did is he has a questionnaire on there. You can put your email in there on the questionnaire. Just click on that link in the show description from Johnny Schultz, the Fish the Moment show that aired a couple weeks ago. Fill that out, and then by the 30th of September, and then on the 1st of October, we'll draw to get the new Denali Novice reel. Then I think we also have some new apparel and stuff coming down the line. But great show today. Always like hearing from different anglers on how they get the job done on the same fishes. It's amazing. There's 200 guys in these events, in these Bassmaster Opens, and we all start somewhere different. We all start where we think the juice is. It's just crazy. You think, I found exactly the only way you can catch them. Heck, you can catch them a million different ways, doing a million different things. So this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. The man Frank Scalish. We'll see everybody then. Later.